The 2025 Nissan Ariya looks an awful lot like the one from before, and it drives like it too. But there is one new feature this year that makes it a much more compelling vehicle, or at least has the potential to, and it fits right in the palm of your hand. For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that. All right, guys, so here is the big deal this year. You can check it out for yourselves. This is a NACS adapter, which stands for the North American Charging System. And that is the charging standard that Tesla launched years ago. It's proprietary technology, while the rest of the industry went in a different direction for its fast charging, using what's known as CCS, a combined charging system. Well, Tesla went its own way, go figure, and now most of the rest of the industry has signed agreements with the brand to use that connection, which means other vehicles can hook up to its chargers. That's all well and good. Now, Nissan did say the Ariya is going to get a dedicated NACS charger port, but until that time, you can use this adapter. That also means you can use the adapter for 2024 and 2023 Ariyas. Basically, every Ariya ever sold in Canada, if you hook up that adapter, it will work. But there is one major sticking point that I wasn't prepared for, and I don't think you guys were either, because this only works with versions 3 and 4 of Tesla's superchargers. So that means only the newest ones that have come online work with this Ariya. Not a lot of them have been new, at least in this neck of the woods. In and around the Greater Toronto area, many of them are older, and that means I cannot plug this thing in. And if you take a look at the My Nissan app, you can filter by NACS adapter chargers. And if you take a look, there really aren't that many around here, and that is a huge disappointment. Honestly, it just feels like buyers have been sold a bit of a bill of goods here, because thousands of Tesla chargers were promised, and I know that we think of it differently, right? Usually we think of chargers as locations, whereas it's thousands of chargers across less locations, but that's still thousands. And the fact that there are barely, 10 in and around the GTA as of right now is a huge sticking point. Now, yes, if you do not rely on public charging infrastructure, it's not really going to be a problem. But it means if you're road tripping, you can't take advantage of those mall locations where Tesla has really dominated. There are so many places out and about that have Tesla superchargers. And the fact that most of them as of right now do not work with this Ariya is a big problem. Because the whole point of this is this sort of charge and pay approach. You don't need to have half a dozen different apps, have a bunch of money in accounts for different apps. You can just have one centralized My Nissan app and use a whole bunch of chargers, and it charges your credit card after the session is done, including at those Tesla chargers. So the fact that's not possible, huge bummer for me. Anyways, whether it's Tesla or any other type of fast charger, this thing will max out at 130 kilowatts. Of course, that is in ideal conditions. Probably not going to happen all the time, but if you do hook up to a 130 or more charger, you get that peak charging. You can do the benchmark 10 to 80% in about 40 minutes, which isn't too bad. And then if you hook up to a 50 kilowatt station, you should be able to do it in about an hour and a half. That is not terrible. Neither is the range, although I know some people would like to see more. Now, this specific one I'm driving, because it's all-wheel drive and it's riding on 20-inch wheels, it gets 414 kilometers on a full charge, according to Nissan. There is one that can do 438. And then if you opt for the front-wheel drive version, you can get close to 470 kilometers. Now, in my previous experience, it was pretty easy to exceed that estimate. This time around, not so much. Although when I was cruising around town the other day, right through the heart of Toronto, I was able to get the consumption rate down to just about 17 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is 7.1 better than this thing is officially rated for, 24.1. That makes it very appealing, and it means it is possible to exceed the 414 kilometers this thing is rated for. Although, like I said, now that I've been out on the highway, cruising around today while we're filming, I'm closer to 20, but that's still not bad, and it's much better than its official rating. So, like I said, aside from the extra traction, this thing is very much the same as the last Ariya I drove, but that's because it is. Nissan has not changed it at all, and I don't really think it needed to, at least in terms of the drive experience. There's a nice balance of conventional and EV feel here. Now, you will notice the battery pack, all of that weight and the rigidity down low over rougher pavement like we're on right now. Then it's noticeable, but if you're just cruising around, it's pretty easy to forget that this thing is all electric. Yes, it will accelerate more quickly than a gas-powered crossover this size, and you have the advantage of regenerative braking, but really this thing feels like any other crossover in the best ways possible. Now, I do want to go back to that regen braking though for just a second, because there are some different settings. There's this B mode that you can drop it into. That'll boost the regeneration. There's also this whole E-step that Nissan calls its regen system that you can toggle on or off with this control here on the console. But there's no one pedal driving, and that to me is a huge bummer with this or any other EV that doesn't offer it. And quite frankly, I haven't seen a compelling argument for why it's okay to skip going all the way, because this thing will slow itself down right to about 15 kilometers an hour, and then you have to take over with the mechanical brakes. And I just don't get it, because the thing is, if you don't want to use one pedal, you don't have to. And every vehicle with one pedal driving, you can turn it on or off, and it generally doesn't affect the regen. You still have regen, you're just shutting off the aggressiveness of it. So the fact that you cannot bring this thing to a full stop by just easing off the accelerator, that really does bother me. And while we're on the subject of my complaints, I have more than a few inside this cabin. Okay, some of it I complained about back in 2023. These haptic controls in here that are the exact same as they were before, and they are so irritating. Now, yes, they look good. They're sort of embedded into this wood finish along the dash as well as here on the console, but they take such deliberate actions to make them work. They're almost impossible to use at a glance, and you really do have to press. You can also see that whole panel move when you do it. That part's a little unbecoming. The other big issue I have in here that I don't remember last time is this infotainment system is so incredibly laggy. Even just swiping from one page to the next, there's this huge delay, and anything related to the navigation takes forever to load. There are these big, long loading screens. The maps themselves also look like they're about 20 years old. I remember the first GPS unit I ever had was this old TomTom, and this doesn't look all that different. Don't love it, especially nowadays. You have all these vehicles with Google Maps built right in, and that is great. This, not so much, but the good news is this thing does have standard wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. That means you can call both of those up. Neither of them seem to suffer from the same lag. And the cool thing is you can access your Google Maps right from those phone mirroring systems. So that part makes it at least a little bit forgivable. I also want to point out that there's a standard wireless phone charger, which is a great companion to go with those wireless phone mirroring systems. It's underneath this console bin lid. That's a very cool location for it. I like that it's hidden, but it's not a ventilated unit. There's no fan in there, and my phone got very hot when I had it stuffed in there. Now, luckily, there are some USB ports down here below the console, as well as a couple more on the back. So I would recommend those. And like I've pointed out in the past, I find when you're using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, your phone battery is going to drain quicker than a wireless charger can juice it back up. So you may as well just plug it in anyways. Aside from that stuff, there are some good features across the lineup. So even the base trim that starts at about 52 grand before tax has some decent features, including heated front and rear seats, as well as a heated steering wheel. Like I said, those wireless phone systems, and all kinds of advanced safety features: lane keep assist, lane departure warning, forward collision warning, pedestrian and cyclist detection, adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic alert, an entire suite that does seem to work pretty well. I haven't had any issues with it this week. Now, I do want to go back to that base trim just for a second though, because there is one big caveat there, and it's not the fact that it's front wheel drive. In that base trim, you only get a 63 kilowatt hour battery pack versus this one I'm driving. It has an 87.5 kilowatt hour unit. That is something to keep in mind, especially if you live outside of town and need to commute for work. That extra capacity is going to go a long way. Now, the same thing applies to the Evolve trim that has all-wheel drive, but it's still the smaller battery pack. You have to step up to the Evolve Plus. But in terms of features, there's good stuff in the base trim, there's good stuff in the Evolve, and then of course this top trim has just about everything, including some optional packages. This one has a platinum package. It's about $4,200. So this one is about 69.5 grand before tax, which is a lot of money, but you do get some extras like this really nice blue leather and suede upholstery that I dig a lot, as well as stuff like ventilated front seats and a head-up display. It's a good selection of features, although without incentives in Canada, we've seen so many of those dry up lately, and it does make it a little more of a challenge. The other thing I want to point out, something I don't love about driving this thing that's still the same as before, when you bring it to a full stop, it just sort of lurches awkwardly to a stop, and then it rocks ever so subtly front to back. It's not disconcerting, it's not unnerving, it's just kind of weird. I've never experienced that before in any other EV except the Ariya, and it's still here 3 years later. So that is something else to consider. And then again, you have this interface that can be frustrating, as well as that patchy Tesla supercharger coverage. Those are the ones to keep in mind. But in terms of space in here, there's a bunch of it in the cabin. This thing really benefits from the flat floor throughout that you get with EVs, since there's no transmission tunnel. So there's lots of legroom. As you can tell, this thing has one of those motorized center consoles, which is a little bit weird, but you wouldn't really be able to do this in a gas-powered vehicle. Again, one of the benefits of the flat floor. Here is my last sticking point though, and it is the shape of the roof line. The way it really tapers towards the back means it does cut into cargo room. Don't get me wrong, there is a decent amount of space in here, but tall upright items, you will not be able to load them in the back because of the shape of the Ariya. Those are the only real issues I have with this thing. Some of them I hope Nissan does iron out sooner rather than later, because they do hamper what's an otherwise decent experience. To recap, I like how spacious the Ariya's cabin is, the way it drives like a conventional crossover, and that the range is pretty reasonable. I don't like that there's no one-pedal driving, the finicky haptic controls inside, or the laggy infotainment system. Okay, so this adapter isn't a game changer, at least not yet, but it definitely has the potential to be one. Harnessing the power of the Tesla charging network, it isn't just a great pun, it means more hassle-free options for Ariya owners new and old. But if you don't care so much about the public charging infrastructure and you think you can live with the frustrations that come with this interface, the Ariya has enough going for it to make it an interesting option if nothing else.